Hello students, welcome to the lecture on organizational culture and its management. After this lecture, you will be able to learn the following objectives: understand organizational culture, explain types of organizational culture, discuss functions of organizational culture, understand cognitive levels of organizational culture, discuss Keynes' organizational culture model, describe key role of organizational culture, understand moral. Now let us know more about concept of organizational culture. A single definition of organizational culture has proven to be very exclusive. No one definition of organizational culture has emerged in the literature. One of the issues involving culture is that it is defined both in terms of its causes and effect. There are two ways in which culture is often defined. There are two ways in which culture is often defined. Outcomes. Defining culture as a manifest pattern of behavior. Many people use the term culture for describing patterns of cross-individual behavior or consistency. For example, when people say that culture is the way we do things around here, they are defining consistent way is in which people perform tasks, solve problems, resolve conflicts, treat customers, and treat employees. Process. Defining culture as a set of mechanisms creating cross-individual behavior or consistency. In this case, culture is defined as the informal values, norms, and beliefs that control how individuals and groups in an organization interact with each other and with people outside the organization. Nature of organizational culture. The culture of an organization may reflect in various forms adopted by the organization. These could be the physical infrastructure, routine behavior, language, ceremonies, gender equality, equity in payment, dominant values such as quality, efficiency, and so on. Philosophy that guides the organization policies towards its employees and customers, like customer first and customer is king, and the manner in which employees deal with customers. Organizational culture. The organizational culture is a system of shared beliefs and attitudes that develop within an organization and guides the behavior of its members. According to Larry Sain, the corporate culture consists of the norms, values, and unwritten rules of conduct of an organization, as well as management styles, priorities, beliefs, and interpersonal behavior that prevail. Together, they create a climate that influences how well people communicate, plan, and make decisions. John M. Martin defines cultures in organization in the following words. As individuals come into contact with organization, they come into contact with dress norms, the organization's formal rules and procedures, its formal codes of behavior, rituals, and so on. These elements are some of the manifestations of organization culture. Types of organizational culture. The following types of organizational culture collegiate. There is a dual structure of administrative and academic management which result in parallel committee structures which can act as a black hole for decision making, unclear reporting lines, and poor coordination, strong local cultures, agendas, and identifiers. Academic status is perceived as higher than support or administrative function. There are strong subject-specific allegiances, with academics often feeling a stronger alliance to their subject area and external networks than the institutional mission. Decision making occurs through committees which can be slow and lack cohesion. Activities tend to be driven from the ground, primarily linked to local interests. Classic structure of all universities, particularly those with more of a research focus, bureaucratic, characterized by strong central management and top-down decision-making. The hierarchy of control and decision-making is clearly established in the administrative and management structures of the institution. Management roles are clearly designed as career progressions. Heads of department, deans, etc. are appointed through an interview process to tenured position. Central management has strong control over the direction of the strategic priorities for the institution. commonly found in FE colleges and new universities. Innovative institutions with flexible structures get to respond and adapt quickly to external factors and influences. Strong culture of change and innovation with frequent changes in direction of activities and focus of interest. Often characterized by a matrix structure of responsibilities by both subject area and functional activity, where the latter will often be structured around the identified strategic priorities. Typically, activities focused around particular projects and associated project teams. Characteristic of some new universities and colleges, but also present within the old universities with a substructure of the institution through enterprise centers and research centers which are extremely funded. Enterprise, more closely aligned to traditional businesses and industry approaches, acutely aware of financial mechanism and processes and alert to external opportunities. Traditional management roles and structures with clear demarcation of responsibilities and hierarchical decision-making processes, clear businesses, objectives and plans based on detailed market analysis and needs. More common in America, particularly in some of the newer institutions which are focused on distance education. Function of organizational culture. Organizational culture is the personality of an organization. The way things are done, it is defined as the informal values, norms and beliefs that control how individuals and groups interact internally and externally. Its functions are external adaptation. In a strong culture, groups are committed to the companies. The first is mission. In a strong culture, groups are committed to the company's mission and strategy to deal with the competitive environment and other external forces. The second and third elements are goals and means. Goals are derived from the mission but are more specific. The third element is the means to achieve the goals, including labor specialization, compensation system and organization structure. The fourth and fifth elements are measurement and correction. Internal integration. Organizational culture also plays an important role in internal integration. The first is common language to communicate effectively. Group members develop a common set of actions and words. The second element is group boundaries. There should be consensus on who is or is not a member. Leadership may formally set these boundaries, but the group ratifies them. The third element is the distribution of power and status, which is the process governing how power is earned and how to deal with authority and peers. The fourth element is the development of friendship, norms and customs within groups. The fifth element is a system of rewards and punishment for obeying and disobeying rules. The sixth element is that groups have ways sing religion, ideology, beliefs and myths to explain the unexplainable, such as a sharp change in business condition, a tragic accident or a natural disaster. Importance of culture to the organization. The culture decides the way employees interact at their workplace. A healthy culture encourages the employees to stay motivated and loyal towards the management. The culture of the workplace also goes a long way in promoting healthy competition at the workplace. Employees try their level best to perform better than their fellow workers and earn recognition and appreciation of the superiors. Every organization must set guidelines for the employees to work accordingly. The culture of an organization represents certain predefined policies which guide the employees and give them a sense of direction at the workplace. No two organizations can have the same work culture. It is the culture of an organization which makes it distinct from others. The work culture goes a long way in creating the brand image of the organization. The organization culture brings all the employees on a common platform. The employees must be treated equally and no one should feel neglected or left out at the workplace. The work culture unites the employees who are otherwise from different backgrounds, families and have varied attitudes and mentalities. The culture gives the employees a sense of unity at the workplace. Certain organizations follow a culture where the employees, irrespective of their designation, have to step into the office on time. The work culture promotes healthy relationship amongst employees. No one treats work as a burden and molds himself according to the culture. Cognitive levels of organizational culture. Levels of organization culture. Many definitions of culture give primacy to the cognitive components such as assumption, beliefs and values. Others expand the concept to include behavior and artifacts, leading to a common distinction between the visible and the hidden levels of organizational culture. Skene, 1985, one of the foremost experts in the area, identifies the levels as artifacts and symbols, patterns of behavior, behavioral norms, values, fundamental assumption, strong versus weak culture. Although all organizations have cultures, some appear to have stronger, more deeply rooted cultures than others. Initially, a strong culture was conceptualized as a coherent set of beliefs, values, assumptions, and practices embraced by most members of the organization. The emphasis was on number one, the degree of consistency of beliefs, values, assumption and practice across organizational members, and number two, the pervasiveness number of consistent beliefs, values, assumption and practices. Culture was initially seen as a means of enhancing internal integration and coordination, but the open system view of organization recognized that culture is also important in mediating adaptation to the environment. The traditional view of a strong culture could be contrary to the ability of organizations to adapt and change. Skene's organizational culture model. Let us now discuss the Skene's organizational culture model in detail. The model was published by Edgar Skene at the 80s of the 20th century. Skene model defines organizational culture as the deepest and strongest aspect of organization life. The culture has three cognitive levels which one can measure. The first level is where the organizational attributes that can be seen, felt and heard by the uninitiated observer. This level includes behavior, colors, furnishings, recognition. The next level is about the professed culture of the organization members. This level includes slogans, flyers, lists, statements. One can measure there by interviews and readings papers of the organization. The last and deepest level is where lays the organization tactics. Assumption, these elements are unseen, subconscious, the unspoken rules of the organization. Skene's model gives an opportunity to measure these levels and to compare the links between them. If the links are strong, then there is a strong organizational culture. Problems with Skene's model. There were certain problems with this model. Such issues include: first problem, it is not really clear what is the difference between the professed culture and tacit assumption. It is hard to define when some kind of professed culture becomes a tacit assumption. Second problem, the term of organizational attributes is too vague and general. It includes almost everything that happens in the organization, from a smile to color of a desk. Organization politics. Organizational politics is the process of one person exerting influence over another. Politics is the exchange relationship as acted out in the day-to-day forum of the organization. The most effective political behaviors have been found to be rational persuasion, inspirational appeal, and consultation. Tactics used should be appropriate for the objective in mind, and the influencer must have the power to use that tactic in that situation. The effectiveness of the influence tactic chosen varies depending on the amount of resistance likely to be encountered, how usual it is to use that tactic in that situation, the likelihood that the tactic will change the target's attitudes, and the skill with which the tactic is used. The most type of organizational politics that one can encounter include politics of performance evaluation. Executives admit that evaluation are sometimes affected by political concentration and by conditions in the organization as a whole. Politics played a role in the evaluation process because executives took into consideration the daily interpersonal dynamics between them and their subordinates. Executives sometimes inflated the appraisal to provide ratings that would effectively maintain or increase the subordinates' level of performance. Conflict. Conflict is not a byproduct of normal operations or an unintended and unwanted consequence of day-to-day activities, but the way the organization makes choices for future action, makes changes in power relationship, and keeps itself flexible and adaptive. Conflict in organization occurs when an influence attempt is resisted, likely because of different preferences or goals of the parties involved, or because the influence would change the power dynamics between the parties involved. There are 5 possibilities for an individual to deal with conflict. Dominating. When the parties involved try to achieve their own goals with little or no concern for the goals or interests of the other party, conflict is seen as a one must win and one must lose situation. Integrating. When each of the parties in the conflict attempts to find a solution that satisfies the goals of all parties involved, conflict is defined as a search for a win-win solution. Compromising. When there is no clear winner and loser, but each party to the conflict gives up something, neither party achieves all their goals. Avoiding. When one or both parties refuses to recognize that conflict exists or refuses to become involved in an attempt to resolve the conflict. Avoidance may be accomplished by the physical separation of the parties involved or by suppressing any open display of conflict. Obliging. When one party to the conflict places the goals of the other party above his or her own interests, conflict is dealt with by one party giving in to the other. Managing conflict. Several ways of reducing conflict or managing conflict are available to the manager. Structural changes. It includes conflict between groups that is often caused by task interdependence and differences in goals and perceptions. Predictable changes are known to occur within each group and between groups. A leader is likely to be selected or to emerge who is skilled at handling conflict. Mechanism for resolving these intergroup conflicts includes the following. Lessening the interdependence between the groups. Physical separation of groups can reduce their conflict. The separation of their workflows by buffering the creation of inventory between the units so their workflow is less interdependent will also reduce conflict. Authoritative command from someone in the organization hierarchy above both the groups. The use of integrators and boundary spanners who can effectively communicate the position of both groups. Direct confrontation and negotiation. The creation of interdependent tasks and goals to coordinate to both groups tasks that can only be accomplished by working together. Reward system. When conflict is caused by competition for a limited pool of rewards, the rewards available can be expended so that all who qualify for a reward are able to obtain it. The rewards can also be allotted on the basis of individual accomplishment and not based on comparison to the achievements of other individuals. Individual knowledge and skills. When conflicts occurs because members of the organization have different backgrounds, different values because of different socialization experiences or different time spans of feedback from their work, exposure to these differences by cross-training or job rotation can help to reduce the conflict. Assertiveness. Assertive behavior is direct speaking about us, needs, feelings and goals. It tells the other party what we feel and want without being aggressive or hurtful. Likewise, assertiveness is not self-sacrifice, denial, and the avoidance of the conflict situation. To be assertive, one can do the following. Key role of organizational culture. You must have understood by now the key role of organizational culture in successful running of any business. Control, hierarchy. Hierarchical organizations share similarities with the stereotypical large bureaucratic corporation. As in the values matrix, they are defined by stability and control as well as internal focus and integration. Good examples of companies with hierarchical cultures are McDonald's, think standardization and efficiency, and government agencies like the Department of Motor Vehicles, think rules and bureaucracy. Create autocracy. With the advent of the information age, a new approach developed to deal with the fast-paced and volatile business environment. Social, economic and technological changes made older corporate attitudes and tactics less efficient. Success now was envisioned in terms of innovation and creativity with a future-forward posture. Spatial implications, since each of these organizational types is distinguished by different attitudes, values, behaviors and beliefs, it is understandable that the same workplaces with the four organizational culture types offers a simple means of categorization and understanding. However, it is possible for a company or department to have subdominant elements. Compete, market. These companies are similar to the control hierarchy in that they value stability and control. However, instead of an inward focus, they have an external orientation and they value differentiation over integration. This began largely because of the competitive challenges from overseas that forced American companies to search for a more effective business approach. Collaborate, clan. It emphasizes on flexibility and discretion rather than the stability and control of control. Hierarchy and compete, market organization. A collaborate clan organization with its emphasis on teamwork and sociality needs spaces that foster and reflect this. Rows of high paneled cubes that might be appropriate in certain compete market companies would be incompatible with the way a collaborate clan organization works and how it wants to present itself. Morale. Morale should be viewed as a dynamic phenomenon relevant to at levels and category of employees and should be understood as the sum of psychic qualities reflecting courage, zeal and confidence in the performance of duty. Morale is frequently assumed to be associated with a higher performance, greater satisfaction and increased productivity. When an employee feels secure and is able to satisfy his personal motives independent of the attainment of organizational objectives, he may not attach any significant importance to his job efforts, though his morale may be quite high. In the same way, low morale and high productivity may coexist. It is, however, worth noting that negative correlation between morale and productivity is based upon the notion of morale being equal to job satisfaction. Moreover, research has not yet proved either that there exists no positive relationship whatsoever between morale and productivity or that the management can afford to overlook the problem of employee morale without producing any adverse effects. Factors determining morale. The following factors are generally found associated with morale. Social factors. People derive satisfaction from their social relationship and compatibility with fellow employees. Informal groups gain more support, particularly in the context of jobs that offer little or no intrinsic satisfaction. Cohesive groups provide support and consolation to their members and protect them by countering sources of threat. Supervisory techniques. Choice of techniques and adequacy of supervision at a given level have a direct bearing upon the morale of subordinates. Task-oriented manager who adopts punitive or close style of supervision and direction is likely to undermine morale of his subordinates. Job satisfaction. Intrinsic or job content factors like achievement, recognition, the job itself, responsibility, advancement, and potential for growth, etc. contribute to employee satisfaction. Hence, the satisfiers or motivators that are intrinsic to the job, and evidently management should spend more time and money on these factors than on hygiene factors. Organization and its purpose. An individual who upholds integrity of the organization and perceives its purpose to the accomplishment of which his efforts are directed as worthwhile is likely to possess a high morale. summary. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in the lecture. Organizational culture is a widely used term, but one that seems to give rise to a degree of ambiguity in terms of assessing its effectiveness on change variables in an organization. The key to using culture to improve performance lies in matching cultural attributes to organizational goals. It is very important to note that the substantial research that contributed to the development and validation of the organizational culture types focus on companies as a whole. Organizational culture serves two major functions: external adaptation and internal integration. And the values matters create are similar to collaborate in that they emphasize flexibility and discretion.